I didn't plan to go to that party. Honestly, the only reason I showed up was because my best friend Mateo wouldn't stop texting me, saying I needed to get out of my rut. His words, not mine. And yeah, okay, maybe I was in a bit of a rut. It had been about 3 weeks since James, my ex, dumped me. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how he did it. Casually, in a parking lot, right after we got burritos. He had sour cream on his lip when he told me he, quote, so needed space. Like, how am I supposed to take you seriously when you can't even finish chewing? We had dated for almost a year. He was my first real boyfriend. Not a situationship, not a closeness. Actual couple stuff. Meeting parents. Planning vacations. Talking about moving in together. And then, suddenly, I was single again, and all the plans we made were nothing but deleted Google Calendar events. So yeah, I didn't want to party. But I also didn't want to keep refreshing his Instagram. Mateo picked me up, blasting some reggaeton remix that rattled the car doors, already halfway drunk off a flask he'd accidentally brought from his cousin's wedding. The guy could have made a dead man laugh, and by the time we pulled up to the house, I had actually managed a real smile. The party was at James's friend Tyler's place, which should have been my first red flag. But in my defense, I didn't know he would be there, let alone his older brother Daniel. God, Daniel. Daniel was 3 years older than James, built like he played rugby and worked as a personal trainer on weekends, which, turns out, he did. I had met him maybe twice before. The first time, he nodded at me politely. The second, he offered me a beer and called me Jay's boyfriend with this weird smirk, like he wasn't sure if he was teasing me or flirting. James said he was just being his usual cocky self. That night, I hadn't even been at the party for 15 minutes when I saw James. He was across the room, laughing with some guy the first didn't recognize, his hand already resting a little too low on the guy's back. He didn't see me. Or if he did, he didn't care. That's when I went to the bathroom. I didn't cry right away. I just sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the dirty tile floor, trying not to feel anything. But it crept up slowly, that familiar tightness in my chest. The blurry vision. The slow, dumb collapse of pretending I was fine. So I cried. Quietly, hoping the music would cover it. But then the door clicked open. I panicked, thinking I forgot to lock it. I stood up fast, wiped my face, tried to pull it together in one breath. And then I saw him. Daniel. He froze in the doorway, eyes landing on me, red-eyed. Obviously wrecked. Shit, sorry, he said, starting to back out. Didn't know someone was in here. But he didn't leave. Instead, he stepped inside and closed the door behind him. You okay? He asked. I nodded too quickly. Yeah, just needed a second. He looked at me like he didn't buy it, like he could see right through me. And maybe he could. He leaned against the sink, arms crossed, watching me carefully. You saw him? I hesitated, then nodded again. Daniel let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. He's an idiot, I looked at him. You don't even know what happened. He shrugged. Don't need to. I know my brother. He screws up a lot of things. Let me guess. He ended it out of nowhere, and now he's already moving on like nothing happened. My silence was answer enough. Daniel stepped closer, slowly, like he was making sure I wouldn't bolt. You deserve better than him, he said. It was such a cliché line, but the way he said it, low, sure, no hesitation, hit me harder than it should have. Then he added, Want to get out of here? I blinked. Like, leave the party? He smiled, just slightly. Yeah, with me. I stared at him, heart racing, not sure if I was imagining the way his eyes lingered on mine. And that was the start of something I never saw coming. I didn't know what to expect when I followed Daniel out of the bathroom. The party was still pulsing behind us, music thumping like a heartbeat I didn't belong to. I kept my head down, hoping no one would notice us slipping past the crowd. Daniel didn't say a word, just let me follow, his long strides cutting through the chaos with ease. We got to his car, black, sleek, low to the ground, the kind of car that makes a sound even when it's not moving. He opened the passenger door for me, and I felt my cheeks heat up instantly. Politeness? Or something else? I wasn't sure yet. The interior smelled faintly of leather and pine-scented air freshener. The seats were cold, the kind of cold that prickles your skin when you first sit down, but I didn't care. I just wanted out of the party, away from James, away from everything I couldn't process. Daniel slid into the driver's seat, started the car without a word, and we pulled out into the dark streets. The city felt different at night. Empty, breathing, like it had slowed down just for us. I wasn't sure if it was the absence of people or the presence of Daniel that made everything feel charged. He didn't reach for my hand, didn't even glance at me. He just drove, eyes on the road, and I sat there, fingers fidgeting with the hem of my sleeve, trying not to imagine what was coming next. "So," he said finally, voice low, almost hesitant. "You okay?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to say I was fine, but the truth would have sounded pathetic. And somehow I trusted him enough, not that I understood why, to answer honestly. "No," I whispered, barely audible over the hum of the tires. I'm not." Daniel didn't speak. He just nodded once, quickly, and exhaled. The silence wasn't awkward. It was deliberate. Full of tension, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. I could feel his presence across the space between us. Not intrusive, but heavy enough that I couldn't ignore it. Every slight movement he made, the brush of his arm against the door, the subtle shift in his posture, sent a jolt through me I couldn't explain. We drove in silence for a while, the kind of silence that isn't empty. It's full. Full of possibilities. Full of words unspoken, feelings unacknowledged. I tried to keep my eyes on the passing streetlights, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the bathroom, to the way he had looked at me when he first saw me crying. There was something in his gaze I couldn't name, something gentle but also filled with intent. I shook my head slightly, trying to ignore the heat creeping up my neck. Finally, he pulled into a quiet, dimly lit park. The kind where the swings creak in the wind and the moon reflects off the pond like it's silver liquid. He parked but didn't turn off the engine. Just sat there, breathing steady, waiting for me to figure out why I was here, why I had trusted him enough to get into his car in the first place. I fidgeted. "Why here?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Because it's quiet," he said simply. "You needed space. I just wanted to get you out of there." His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. I turned to him, trying to read the expression in his dark eyes, but he didn't give anything away. Not a hint of judgment, not a trace of mockery, just him, focused, calm, present. I swallowed hard, feeling the tightness in my chest grow heavier. I don't even know why I let myself cry like that," I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. "I'm pathetic." Daniel's hand moved, slowly, tentatively, resting on the center console just inches from mine. I felt my heart hammer against my ribs. He didn't touch me yet, didn't reach out, but the nearness of his hand was enough to make my stomach coil into a knot of anticipation. "You're not pathetic," he said softly, but with certainty. "You've just got feelings that matter. And yeah, maybe he didn't see it, didn't get it, but that doesn't make you any less." I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. The words he chose, the way he said them, it was intimate, but not in a way that scared me. It was like he was seeing me, really seeing me. Then his hand moved slightly closer, brushing against mine ever so lightly, just the tips of his fingers. A tease, or maybe a test. My body reacted immediately. A shiver ran through me, involuntary, making my skin prickle under the faint moonlight streaming through the windshield. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. And something in the way he looked at me told me he hadn't expected me to. The quiet grew louder in my head. Every heartbeat, every subtle brush, every slight movement between us was amplified. My mind screamed at me to stop, to pull back, but every fiber of my body wanted to stay. And then, almost imperceptibly, he leaned in, just a fraction, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough that my entire body tensed in anticipation, yet I didn't move away. My chest pressed slightly against the edge of the seat, and for a moment the world shrank down to just the two of us, alone in that car, parked in the shadow of the quiet park. "I don't know if I should do this," he whispered, and it wasn't fear. Not exactly. It was hesitation. But the words themselves carried a weight that made my heart skip a beat. "But I want to!" My breath hitched. My pulse thundered. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Nothing in my life had prepared me for what was about to happen. I could feel every nerve ending in my body as Daniel leaned closer, the space between us collapsing like it was meant to. The air was thick, warm, and charged with something I couldn't name. My heart was hammering so loud I was certain he could hear it over the hum of the idling engine. My hands were gripping the edge of the seat so tightly my knuckles ached. He paused, his breath brushing against my temple. For a moment, I thought he might pull back, but then his hand, steady, deliberate, rested over mine. The warmth of his skin was immediate, electric. My fingers twitched instinctively, unsure whether to reciprocate or freeze in place. I didn't have to decide. His hand nudged mine slightly, encouraging, coaxing, but never forcing. My body betrayed me. I leaned just a fraction closer, and it was like the universe shifted. My chest pressed lightly against his, and I could feel the slow, steady beat of his heart through the fabric of his shirt. I was hyper-aware of everything. The slight scent of his cologne, a mix of pine and something faintly citrusy, the subtle rise and fall of his chest, the heat radiating from him that seemed to seep into me, threading into my bones. You're really warm," I whispered, my voice cracking slightly, as if admitting it made the sensation more intense. Daniel let out a quiet chuckle, low and intimate. "Yeah?" He shifted slightly, closing the gap even more, though not fully. His eyes, dark and intense, locked on mine. "You feel good," he added. Not in a crude way, not in a teasing way, but with a gravity that made my stomach flutter violently. I couldn't speak. My lips were dry, my mind a storm of panic and desire. Every instinct screamed at me to pull away. The rational part of my brain, the one that had survived heartbreak and embarrassment countless times, was begging me to stop, to put some distance between us. But my body refused. Every inch of me leaned forward, seeking contact, craving his nearness. Then, his thumb brushed lightly over the back of my hand. Just a whisper of a touch, but it was enough to make me shiver. My chest rose and fell quickly, shallow breaths betraying my attempt to appear calm. Daniel's gaze softened ever so slightly, a rare vulnerability flickering across his face before he masked it again with that controlled intensity he always carried. "I've wanted to do this," he murmured, voice low, almost lost beneath the hum of the car. "I just didn't know if I should." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "Me too." It was the first time I admitted anything aloud. The first time I recognized the heat coiling inside me wasn't shame or fear. It was something raw, something mutual, something that had been building quietly under the surface for days, weeks even, and had now erupted between us, palpable and impossible to ignore. Daniel shifted again, his hand moving from mine to lightly brush against my knee, just above the fabric of my jeans. A teasing, testing contact, light enough to respect boundaries but heavy enough to leave a mark on my skin. My pulse skyrocketed. My knees pressed together instinctively, yet I didn't move away. Every instinct told me I should, but every shred of desire told me to stay. "You're shaking," he whispered, leaning so close that I could feel the warmth of his breath against my ear. The words made my head spin, my body tensing. I'm not," I lied weakly. My voice sounded pathetic even to me. His lips brushed my temple, a ghost of a kiss that left my skin tingling. My stomach flipped, my chest tightened, and my mind became a whirlpool of sensation. I had never imagined a touch like this could make me feel simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. Daniel's hand trailed up, brushing over my thigh in a slow, deliberate motion, staying just within the realm of teasing. Not forceful, not invasive, but intimate enough to draw every nerve in my body to attention. I swallowed hard, trying to stay composed, but I couldn't. I wanted more. I wanted to lean in, to feel him closer, to cross the line neither of us had dared to define yet. Then, in a heartbeat, he paused, his hand lingering, and his voice dropped lower. If we do this, it changes everything. His words were caution, warning, and promise all at once. My pulse hammered, and I felt my lips part without thinking. "I don't care," I whispered. That was all the invitation he needed. His lips brushed against mine, soft at first, testing, tasting, and then firmer, claiming as if to erase the distance between us that had existed for months. My hands moved of their own accord, resting on his shoulders, feeling the strength and warmth there, grounding me while every other sense went wild. The kiss deepened. I felt a rush of heat and adrenaline, of relief and want, and the world outside the car faded completely. The hum of the tires, the distant city lights, the music from the party, none of it mattered. There was just us. Just the press of our bodies, the rhythm of our breaths, the unspoken acknowledgement of desire and trust, and something dangerously intoxicating that I couldn't name but didn't want to. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel broken. I felt seen, desired, alive, and I knew, with a certainty that frightened me almost as much as it thrilled me, that this was the start of something I couldn't and wouldn't turn back from. The car was silent, except for the faint hum of the engine, but inside it felt like every nerve in my body was vibrating. Daniel's lips were still pressed against mine, but our kiss had shifted, slow, deliberate, exploratory. My hands traced his shoulders, feeling the taut muscles beneath his shirt, while his hand, now braver, drifted from my knee up to my thigh, testing the boundaries, teasing without overstepping. My pulse was deafening in my ears, my thoughts a chaotic storm of anticipation and disbelief. I shouldn't be doing this," he whispered against my lips, his breath hot, brushing across my cheek and making me shiver uncontrollably. His voice carried the same tension as his hands, deliberate, patient, and unbearably intimate. But there was something in the way he looked at me, something unspoken, yet fully understood. He wanted this as much as I did. "I don't care," I breathed back, my voice trembling with both fear and longing. I could feel every beat of my heart matching his, every tiny brush of skin against skin amplified into electricity. The moment was thick with desire, and somehow it felt like the world outside didn't exist. Daniel's hand slid slowly higher, under the fabric of my jeans, pausing just short of crossing a line neither of us had named. My body betrayed me entirely. A low gasp escaped me as my hands moved to grip his shirt, pulling him closer. The tension between us was almost unbearable, a mixture of heat, anticipation, and the intoxicating fear of getting caught in our own recklessness. "You're shaking," he said softly, but with a knowing lilt. "Relax. Just trust me." I nodded, even though my body felt like it had a mind of its own. I leaned in further, letting him guide the moment, my lips tracing the line of his jaw as his fingers ghosted over sensitive spots, teasing, testing, daring me to let go of control. Every nerve screamed with desire, but there was also an undercurrent of care, a carefulness in his touch that made me feel wanted in a way I had never felt before. Our eyes met in the dim glow of the dashboard, and I saw it there, the flicker of something raw, untamed, and entirely genuine. Daniel's expression was an open confession without words, and my chest swelled with something I hadn't expected: trust. This wasn't reckless. Not exactly. It was intense, yes, but it was real, and that was terrifying and thrilling, all at once. He shifted slightly, brushing his lips again against mine, softer this time, lingering, as if trying to memorize the sensation of me. His hand moved again, tracing along my hip, over the edge of my jeans, careful but insistent. My body responded instinctively, moving closer, pressing into him as if I could meld into him completely. Every brush, every flicker of his fingers against my skin sent sparks shooting through me. "God," I breathed, breaking for a fraction of a second, my forehead resting against his. "I didn't think I never imagined." "I know," he interrupted softly, his thumb brushing along my jawline. "Neither did I. But here we are." And we were. The quiet park, the hum of the car, the night sky above us. It all dissolved around this cocoon of tension, desire, and something profoundly intimate. Daniel leaned in again, closer this time, pressing his lips harder against mine. I responded immediately, my hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, desperate for contact, for reassurance, for more of this intoxicating closeness. Time stretched and warped. Seconds became minutes, minutes an eternity. The world had narrowed to just the press of skin, the shared warmth, and the undeniable magnetism between us. I was acutely aware of everything, every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle movement that drew us closer yet kept just enough distance to maintain the delicate tension. And then, just when I thought I couldn't handle the intensity, Daniel pulled back slightly, just enough for our foreheads to rest together, and whispered, "We need to stop. Not because I don't want this, because I don't want it to be rushed. I want it right." I nodded, though every fiber of my body protested. The need, the longing, the heat, it hadn't diminished, but his words carried weight, respect, consideration. And, somehow, even in the lingering desire, I felt cared for. Seen, understood. The hum of the car became louder in my ears, the night air cooler, but the tension didn't fade. Not entirely. It hovered, suspended in the space between us. We sat like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, neither of us breaking the fragile intimacy that had formed. It was a pause, a promise, a line drawn in the dark that neither of us wanted to cross yet, but knew we would. Finally, he pulled back fully, just enough to meet my eyes. The raw intensity hadn't faded. It had only crystallized, sharpened into something undeniable. "You're incredible," he said softly, his voice almost a whisper, trembling just slightly. "You too." I breathed, my pulse still racing, my mind still reeling from the sensations, from the closeness, from the words unspoken. Every sense was alive, every nerve singing with anticipation for what was coming next. And in that quiet, intimate moment, I realized there was no turning back. Not from this feeling. Not from him. Not from whatever this was turning into. The night was just beginning. The park around us was quiet. Almost too quiet. Every sound, the rustling of leaves, the distant bark of a dog, the faint hum of city traffic, felt magnified. Inside the car, the air was thick with anticipation, our breaths mingling, our bodies still close enough to feel the heat radiating from one another. Every touch, every brush of skin against skin was amplified, electric. Daniel's hand had moved again, tentative at first, grazing the curve of my waist over my jeans. My pulse spiked immediately. I couldn't think straight, couldn't focus on anything but him. The ache of longing, the need that had been building since the bathroom, surged through me in a wave that left my knees weak. Every fiber of me wanted more, craved the closeness, the heat, the connection. "I don't want to rush you," he murmured, his voice low and husky. But then his hand slipped beneath the hem of my shirt, grazing my stomach, moving deliberately, testing, coaxing. "But I can't help myself." The words made my chest tighten. I nodded, unable to speak. My hands found their way to his shoulders again, gripping, pulling him closer as our lips met in a fiery kiss. This time there was no hesitation, no gentle testing. It was urgent, desperate, and entirely consuming. Our mouths moved together with a rhythm that felt instinctive, natural, as if our bodies had been waiting for this exact moment. His other hand traced along my arm, up to my neck, threading through my hair as he deepened the kiss. I gasped softly against his lips, my body pressing into his, seeking more contact. Every brush of his fingers, every movement against mine, ignited sparks that traveled through me like wildfire. The sensation was overwhelming, almost unbearable, yet thrilling beyond measure. We broke apart just enough to catch our breath, foreheads resting together, our chests heaving in unison. "Are you sure?" he whispered, voice low and intense, eyes searching mine. "I don't want to do anything you're not ready for." "Yes." I breathed out, barely able to form the word, my body aching with need. "I'm sure." Daniel's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile before he leaned in again, this time his hands exploring more boldly. My shirt rode up slightly as his palms grazed my sides, brushing the edges of my ribs, trailing higher with every deliberate movement. The warmth of his touch seared through me, setting my nerves on fire. My hands roamed freely now, exploring the firmness of his shoulders, the sweep of his back, feeling the strength and heat that grounded me even as my heart raced uncontrollably. We kissed again, harder, deeper, the intensity between us escalating with every second. The air in the car felt charged, every small movement magnified, every breath shared heavy with unspoken desire. His lips trailed down my jawline, nuzzling against my neck, teasing, coaxing, sending shivers down my spine. I arched into him instinctively, my hands clutching at his waist, needing the closeness, needing more of the intimacy that was building so naturally between us. "I've wanted this," he murmured against my skin, a shiver in his voice. "Since I first saw you." My chest tightened at the confession, heat pooling in my stomach. "Me too," I whispered, my voice trembling with need. "More than I realized." Daniel's hands moved with purpose now, pressing and exploring, brushing over sensitive spots, each contact deliberate yet gentle, coaxing a reaction from me that I could no longer contain. My breath hitched, my fingers tangled in his hair, and I felt a rush of vulnerability and desire that left me both terrified and exhilarated. We were crossing lines neither of us had anticipated, yet it felt right. Like our bodies had been waiting for this collision, for this shared heat that pulsed between us, undeniable and all-consuming. The kiss broke briefly again, just for air, but the proximity, the heat, the intensity didn't diminish. Daniel's hand lingered at my side, grazing lower now, his thumb brushing just the edge of my jeans, teasing, testing the boundary that we both knew we would cross. My knees pressed together instinctively, yet I leaned into him, letting him guide the moment, letting the sensation overwhelm me. My chest pressed against his, our breaths mingled, our bodies perfectly aligned in the intimacy of that suspended moment. "I want you," he whispered, voice husky, almost a growl, and the words sent a jolt through me, leaving me breathless. "If you want me to." "I do," I gasped, voice trembling, desire coursing through me. "I want you." The affirmation was all the invitation he needed. His lips captured mine again, the kiss deeper, more urgent, our hands exploring, pressing, coaxing. The world outside the car ceased to exist. Every sense was heightened. The warmth of his skin, the taste of him, the heat of the air between us, the slow, deliberate rhythm of our bodies finding each other. The tension, the desire, the need, all intertwined into something raw, real, and utterly consuming. And in that moment, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The car's interior felt small, almost suffocating, but in the most exhilarating way. My senses were overwhelmed, my mind racing to keep up with the intensity of what was happening between us. Daniel's lips never left mine for long, each kiss an urgent reminder that the world outside the car no longer mattered. It was just the two of us, our breaths, our movements, our touch, filling the space between us. The night had turned into something both impossibly intimate and desperately needed. I was hyper-aware of every shift of his body, the way his hands explored my skin, the heat of his touch lingering long after he'd moved away, his breath against my ear, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. Everything about him felt like an invitation to fall deeper into this moment. But with every breathless kiss, every brush of skin, the question I had been avoiding loomed larger. What came next? What did this mean? And what about the reality that waited for us beyond this car, beyond the spark of desire that flared between us? I pulled back slightly, just enough to catch my breath. The air was thick, heavy with unspoken words, with that pressing need for more, but also something else, something I couldn't quite place. Daniel's eyes met mine, dark and intent. "You okay?" he asked softly, his voice hoarse, raw from our kisses. I nodded, but it felt like there was more to say, something deeper, something I wasn't ready to confront just yet. "Yeah," I whispered, my voice shaky. "Just trying to catch up with myself." He gave me a faint smile, as if he understood more than I'd said. His hand slid gently along my arm, stopping just above my wrist, as if waiting for me to make the next move. It was a question without words, a challenge wrapped in something far more intimate. His fingers brushed my skin, sending shivers down my spine. "I'm not going to rush you," he said, his voice soft but steady. "But if you want this to go further, if we go further, we need to talk. You need to know I'm not just here for tonight." The words hung in the air, thick with meaning. I swallowed hard, the reality of what was happening settling over me. Daniel wasn't playing games. He wasn't looking for a quick fix. His honesty, his calm, made my heart beat even faster. I realized then that this wasn't just about desire. It was about something deeper, something I hadn't prepared myself for. "You're not just here for tonight?" I repeated, not quite believing it, but wanting to. My heart ached with the possibility. He leaned in again, his lips brushing my forehead in a gentle, almost reverent gesture. "No," he murmured. "I've wanted you for longer than you think, and I don't just mean tonight. I want all of it. I want you. But I won't push if you're not ready." His words hit me like a wave, sweeping away the fear, the doubts, the confusion that had been swirling in my mind. I had spent so long trying to numb myself, to push away the things I couldn't deal with, that I'd never realized how badly I craved something real, something that wasn't just a fleeting moment of escape. I exhaled, a shaky breath escaping my lips, and before I could second-guess myself, I leaned in, pressing my lips to his once more. This kiss was different from the others. It was slow, deliberate, filled with meaning. Every second stretched into eternity as we moved together, our bodies aligning in perfect rhythm. His hands moved to my back, pulling me closer, and I followed suit, feeling the magnetic pull between us that seemed to grow stronger with each passing second. His lips broke from mine, but his hands didn't leave me. He cupped my face gently, his thumbs brushing over my cheekbones. "I want to be sure," he said, his voice low, a quiet promise lingering in the air. "Are you sure?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm sure." The moment we shared felt suspended in time, like the world had paused just for us, allowing us to step into something new. We had crossed a line, yes, but it felt right, felt like something we both needed, something we both wanted. The spark between us wasn't just physical. It was something more emotional, raw, and incredibly real. Daniel's hands slowly moved down to the buttons of my shirt, his touch gentle but deliberate. Each movement sent a jolt through me. He wasn't rushing, he wasn't forcing, he was waiting, giving me space to make the choice with him, and that made all the difference. I watched his movements, the way his hands worked with careful intent, and something inside me stirred. I could feel my heart racing, my breath shallow. I had crossed this line before with James, but it had never felt like this. James had been a whirlwind of uncertainty and confusion, but with Daniel, everything felt different. It felt grounded. It felt like he truly saw me, not just in this moment, but in all the messy, complicated ways that I was. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Daniel asked again, his voice soft but steady. "Yes," I breathed, my fingers reaching for the hem of his shirt, matching his pace. "I'm sure." We both pulled away just long enough to shed our shirts, the cool air of the car rushing over my skin. My heart was thudding in my chest, but there was no fear this time, just clarity. We were two people, brought together by chance, but connected in a way neither of us could deny. And as our hands found each other again, as our lips met once more, I knew that whatever came next, whatever this was worth every second. Daniel's hand slid lower, his fingers brushing against the waistband of my jeans. The touch was light, teasing, but it made my breath catch in my throat. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The night had become a blur of touch, of kisses, of whispered words and quiet confessions. But as we moved closer, as we crossed that line together, I knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back. Whatever was happening between us, it was something real, something I had never felt before. And I was ready for it. The tension between us had been building since the bathroom, since the drive through the quiet streets, since the first tentative touches that ignited something neither of us could ignore. Now, with the air thick and our hearts racing, it felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of us. Every sound outside the car, the distant hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves, the faint bark of a dog, faded to nothing. There was only Daniel and me, and the raw, electric connection that had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks. Our lips met again, harder this time, more urgent, a collision of desire and relief. His hands moved with purpose, tracing my back, my sides, every inch of skin he could reach without crossing the line we hadn't yet named. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, desperate for the warmth and closeness that consumed every rational thought I had left. It was like nothing else mattered, like every nerve ending had been awakened and was singing with fire. Daniel broke the kiss for a brief second, just enough to breathe, and his eyes met mine with an intensity that left me breathless. "I've wanted this, wanted you," he murmured, his voice thick with desire, "for longer than I should have, for longer than I thought I could." My chest tightened at his words, and I could feel the ache of longing that had been building since James ended, things finally beginning to melt away. I've wanted you too," I admitted, my voice shaky. "More than I realized." The admission seemed to give him courage. His hands slid lower, brushing against the waistband of my jeans, teasing, coaxing, careful but deliberate. My body responded instantly, a shiver running through me as anticipation and desire tangled together. I leaned into him, pressing closer, needing more of the heat, the intimacy, the undeniable connection. Every brush of his fingers, every press of his palm against my skin sent jolts of electricity racing through me. He whispered my name, low and deliberate, and the sound made me ache. "Jordan, I need you to trust me." I nodded, my hands clutching at his shoulders, my heart racing. "I trust you," I whispered, and it was the truth. I trusted him completely, even as my body screamed with the intensity of what was happening. Daniel leaned in again, capturing my lips in a kiss that was desperate, consuming, and wholly unrestrained. The world outside ceased to exist. Every touch, every caress, every subtle movement became a conversation in itself, a dialogue of desire and connection that neither words nor actions could fully capture. His hands explored with a reverent intensity, tracing the lines of my body, coaxing responses I didn't even know I had the capacity to give. I gasped softly as his lips trailed down my jaw, nuzzling against my neck, teasing, testing, claiming. My hands roamed over his back, feeling the taut muscles, the warmth, the steady pulse beneath his skin. Every sense was heightened, the scent of him, the warmth of his body, the heat of our shared skin, the sound of our breathing mixing into a rhythm that was both intimate and intoxicating. And then, with a mixture of daring and tenderness, he pressed closer, the space between us collapsing entirely. My chest pressed against his, our bodies perfectly aligned. I could feel the rising tension, the need, the urgency in his touch mirrored in my own. The world outside the car had ceased to exist. We were suspended in a cocoon of heat, desire, and something deeper, something neither of us had expected, but had been building quietly all along. "You're incredible," he murmured, his lips brushing against mine in a softer, almost reverent kiss, as if trying to memorize every sensation, every reaction, every detail. "I've never wanted anyone like this before." My breath hitched, and I pressed closer, letting the sensation overwhelm me. "Neither have I admitted, voice trembling, heart hammering. "I don't think I've ever felt this connected." Daniel's lips met mine again, and this time there was no hesitation, no testing, no pause. Only the full, overwhelming, all-consuming heat of what we had both been denying for far too long. Our hands roamed, exploring, claiming, discovering. Every touch a promise, every kiss a confession. Time seemed to stretch and warp, minutes bleeding into an eternity. The car, the park, the night, they all faded away, leaving nothing but the two of us, our hearts beating in tandem, bodies pressed together, and the undeniable truth that whatever this was, whatever it had become, it was real. It was raw. It was ours. And in that suspended moment, with the night wrapping around us and the city forgotten, we finally let go. We let go of fear, of hesitation, of doubt. We let ourselves exist entirely in the desire, in the closeness, in the connection that had been waiting to explode since the very first glance, since the first brush of a hand, since the quiet understanding that had grown between us. I knew, in that instant, that nothing would ever be the same again. We had crossed the line, yes, but it was a line neither of us regretted crossing. It was the line that led us here, to this raw, breathtaking, unforgettable connection. And for the first time in weeks, I felt alive in a way I hadn't thought possible. Daniel's hand found mine, gripping firmly, his lips resting against my forehead in a quiet, tender gesture. The world outside could wait. The party, the noise, the chaos, none of it mattered. There was only this, only us, only the heat and the longing and the undeniable truth that we had finally, completely, and irrevocably found each other. The first light of dawn filtered through the car windows, painting the interior in soft, golden hues. The night outside had been intense, electric, and unforgettable, and the quiet morning that followed felt like a fragile cocoon, a moment suspended between the chaos of yesterday and the reality we would soon have to face. I blinked against the sunlight, still pressed close to Daniel, our bodies entwined in a way that felt natural and terrifying all at once. He stirred beside me, stretching slowly, his arm brushing across my chest. For a fleeting second, I panicked, remembering the intensity of the night. But then he sighed softly, eyes half closed, and offered a small, almost shy smile. The vulnerability in his gaze made my chest tighten again. But this time it wasn't fear. It was warmth, a quiet, undeniable connection that neither of us could ignore. "You awake?" he murmured, voice low. Hoarse from sleep, or from the night before, I couldn't tell. I nodded, my voice caught somewhere between a whisper and a sigh. "Yeah, barely." He chuckled softly, leaning closer, brushing his lips against mine in a tender, lingering kiss that was nothing like the urgency of the night. This one was soft, intimate, grounding. It was the kind of kiss that reassured, that promised that the world hadn't ended, that the connection between us was real and lasting. "I'm glad," he said, resting his forehead against mine. "I didn't want last night to just disappear. I wanted it to mean something." It did. It meant everything. I could feel it in the way my body relaxed into his, the way my heartbeat slowed just slightly at the sound of his voice, the way every nerve ending still tingled with the memory of his touch. "It does," I admitted. "It really does." We stayed like that for a while, silent but connected, letting the morning sun wrap around us, letting the calm of the world seep into our exhausted, exhilarated bodies. The tension that had been so thick the night before had shifted, no longer urgent, no longer frenzied, but it had not diminished. It had matured into something tangible, something that carried weight and promise. Finally, Daniel shifted slightly, giving me space without breaking the connection entirely. "We should probably get moving," he said softly, though the reluctance in his tone made my chest ache. "Not that I want to." "Yeah," I murmured, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread at the thought of leaving the intimacy of the car behind, of stepping back into reality. "But we'll figure it out. Together." He smiled, that small, genuine smile that had captivated me from the beginning, and nodded. "Together," he repeated. His hand found mine, fingers interlocking naturally, as if we had been doing this for years. And in that simple touch, in the quiet connection of our hands, I knew we would be okay. That whatever challenges awaited us outside this car, the world, the awkwardness, the questions, we would face them as we had faced everything else, together, connected, and undeniably bonded. The sun rose higher, spilling warmth across our skin, and the reality of the new day began to assert itself. But the magic of the night, the connection, the desire, the intimacy, was ours to keep. It was ours alone, a secret and a promise, a bond forged in the quiet moments and the reckless abandon of passion. And as we finally stepped out of the car, hands still entwined, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't known in weeks, a sense of certainty in the chaos of life. That we had found something rare, something real, something worth holding on to. And I knew, without a doubt, that nothing, not the past, not mistakes, not fears, could take this from us. Whatever came next, we would face it together. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready. Ready to embrace it all, ready to trust, ready to fall, and ready to rise. Hand in hand with him, my heart tethered to his, in a connection that would last far beyond that quiet morning, far beyond the intensity of that unforgettable night.